Trepanation. So trepanation's basically the noble art of drilling a hole into your skull. Back then, people thought headaches came from one of two things. Either pressure building up in your skull, or, a demon hanging out in there. Honestly though, didn't really matter, because the treatment was still a freaking hole straight through your skull. And if that didn't do the trick, well, there's always the other side of the skull, right? Tools of this godforsaken trade were just whatever sharpish thing they had lying around. Sharpened stones, obsidian shards, bone fragments. If it could crack a coconut, it could crack a skull. Same idea. Anesthesia? Oh no, nothing like that. You either got really drunk, bit down on a stick, or just screamed till you passed out, which to be fair worked pretty well. The process itself was super delicate. Step 1, find a volunteer, which usually meant anyone just drunk enough to agree. Step 2, chase them down when they hear what you're about to do. Step 3, carefully remove a coin-sized piece of skull using a technique best described as controlled panic. Techniques kind of varied. Some went with the slow scrape method, like they were trying to sandpaper their way through a rock. Others went with the faster option. Drill fast, hope for the best, and just kind of wing it from there. Bleeding was common, infection was common, surviving was less common. But if the patient lived, they were considered spiritually cleansed, or at the very least, tougher than whatever demon they'd just exorcised. And to wrap it up, they'd cover the hole. Could be with metal, could be with moss, could be absolutely nothing. Aftercare was pretty minimal. Basically just good luck and don't sleep face down. Now you're probably thinking, wait, did this actually work? And weirdly, yeah, some skulls actually show signs of healing. Archaeologists have found loads of skulls with trepanation holes. And yep, plenty show bone growing back around the edges. Some of these skulls even have multiple holes, like they actually went back for more. At that point, it was less surgery, more of a loyalty program. Thankfully, we don't do this stuff anymore. Modern medicine, actual ethics, and plain old common sense kinda took over. Though, believe it or not, there are still a few folks out there who swear trepanning expands consciousness. These folks usually aren't asked to babysit, or house sit, or dog sit, or be left alone with scissors. Mercury treatment. So you've had a very fun night with someone whose name you forgot, and now you're covered in spots everywhere, your skin's peeling off, and you're downstairs? Yeah, it's screaming for help. Congrats, you've got syphilis. Yay, memories. So you finally go to the doctor, and he's wearing a giant bird mask, which is super comforting. He takes one look at you and goes, "Ah yes, I've got just the thing. Mercury." In case you missed that in science class, mercury is that shiny stuff that looks cool and destroys anything it touches. Super safe. Their logic was flawless, obviously. Syphilis makes your body rot, so let's fight it with something that also makes your body rot. Two wrongs make a right? So they went ahead and gave mercury in the classiest ways imaginable. Rubbing it on the skin, inhaling the vapors, or putting it in your mouth. All the methods typically used for murder. Let's start with the ointment. They'd mash mercury into this greasy little paste and smear it all over, especially right on the sores. They called it localized treatment, as if the mercury was going to politely stay put and not ruin your entire system. Most patients ended up with mouth sores, lost teeth, and a whole lot of drooling. But hey, if you're not leaking from at least 3 new places, are you even healing? Next up, we have the fumigation. Patients were stuffed into wooden cabinets with just their heads sticking out, while mercury steamed away inside like a toxic sauna. They'd start sweating like crazy, gasping for air, and occasionally seeing their dead grandma in the corner, which somehow meant, ah yes, excellent, healing has begun, still not cured. Time for mercury by mouth. Doctors gave pills to be swallowed, which guaranteed the mercury hit every organ it hadn't already destroyed. Patients mostly reported vomiting, stomach cramps, and the creeping thought that maybe untreated syphilis wasn't so bad after all. Eventually, penicillin was invented and replaced mercury. It cured syphilis without making people glow in the dark. Naturally, this threw the whole medical world into a bit of an identity crisis. For some, it was a revolution. For others, a tragedy. Imagine being that guy whose whole career is built on mercury steam baths. Now you're just standing there, ladle in hand, watching people get better in a single afternoon. No side effects, no screaming, no trail of bodies. What a buzzkill. Uroscopy. Uroscopy is the ancient and worryingly popular practice of diagnosing disease by examining a person's urine. They'd check the clarity, color, smell, and yeah, sometimes even taste the patient's urine. Because when you don't get how the body works, the next best move is to sip the pee and pretend it meant something. Uroscopy was mainly based on the humoral theory, which stated that the human body was ruled by 4 sacred fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If these humors were out of balance, you got sick. Your pee, the great bodily gossip, would snitch on you. The only tiny flaw in this rock-solid theory was that it came from an era where bathing was seen as witchcraft. To help with all this pee reading, doctors used these things called urine charts. Super official. They were these gorgeous, colorful charts showcasing every glamorous shade pee could possibly come in. If it was pale, that meant weak digestion. Deep red, you're either royalty or bleeding out internally. Green? Yeah, you're already dead. Sorry. But the magic didn't stop at color. The charts also analyzed texture, bubbles, smell, and sediment. A thick bottom layer meant your kidneys were in trouble. Foam on top? That meant you were spiritually enlightened. Smells like cabbage? Yeah, that's your body begging you to get your act together. But the real stars of the show were the piss prophets. Yes, that was a real title, for those who built entire careers on reading pee like it was scripture. They were trained, sometimes, trusted, usually, and terribly wrong, always. Imagine a full-grown adult, respected by the community, taking a sip of your pee and going, "Ah, yes, nutty," with a hint of despair. Classic friend zone case. And people would say, "Damn, he's good." But by the 1600s, things started to change. Microscopes came in, germ theory showed up, and suddenly licking someone's pee to decide if they were melancholic stopped being cool. But hey, credit where it's due. Uroscopy was part of the journey. Medicine had to crawl through some seriously weird pee rituals before it could stand on its own. So next time you pee in a cup for a checkup, just be glad the nurse isn't swirling it, sniffing deeply and whispering, Jupiter's in retrograde, definitely worms. Corpse medicine. There was once a time when humanity genuinely believed the best way to cure a headache was to eat a dead guy, because when your skull is throbbing, clearly the only logical answer is more skull. Welcome to the glamorous world of corpse medicine, where your grandma's gout remedy might have been Uncle Steve. In the 12th century, Egyptian mummies were the go-to miracle drug. These dried-out ancient kings were yanked from their tombs, tossed into sacks, and ground into powder. Why? Apparently, people thought inhaling Pharaoh Flake's trademark could enhance their healing powers, because nothing screams longevity louder than snorting a 3,000-year-old corpse up your nose. Apothecaries stocked mummy powder like aspirin and sold it in assortments, extra fine for snorting, chunky for stews, and a family-sized jar if your in-laws were visiting. It was the original snake oil, except this time, the snake was a king and had been embalmed in pitch for thousands of years. Got epilepsy? No problem. Just drink some fresh human blood. The logic? Blood is life, right? So why not chug it like a post-workout smoothie? Ideally, this blood was fresh from someone recently executed at the gallows. People would sometimes gather at public executions, not just to watch, but to collect the medical supplies. Then there's King Charles II of England, monarch, philosopher, and part-time cannibal. He was fond of a regal cocktail called King's Drops. It was skull dust, human skulls, mixed with alcohol. Because if you're going to drink bones, you might as well chase it with liquor. The king genuinely believed this would make him immortal. Spoiler, it didn't. He died. Now for the cherry on this grotesque sundae, where did they get all these corpses from? It's not like people were donating their bodies to science out of the kindness of their hearts. Oh no. Enter grave robbing. Entire industries popped up around digging up graves, hacking off a few limbs, and selling them like medieval multivitamins. And if the local cemetery was running low, well, murder was always an efficient inventory solution. This delightful little practice carried on well into the 18th century in various forms. At no point was it considered cannibalism by those involved. It was medicine. Coprophagy. Coprophagy, in all its aromatic glory, is the act of consuming feces as medicine. Yes, ancient people looked at poop and thought, you know what this needs? A spoon. While today it sounds like something you'd confess in a psychiatric evaluation, ancient cultures like Egypt, China, Rome, and even early Europe saw it as a legitimate remedy. Whether it was cow dung, dog droppings, or good old-fashioned human waste, someone, somewhere, was drying it, fermenting it, or slapping it in a bowl with hopes of healing something. Because when faced with a headache or an infection, ancient logic said, time to eat the evidence. The thinking behind feces as medicine was, let's say, wildly optimistic. The guiding principle? If it's already been through the body once, it clearly knows what it's doing. Some thought feces held the essence of life. Others figured animals eat it sometimes and they're fine, so humans should obviously join the buffet. Chinese medicine credited fermented poop with restoring qi, or vital energy. Romans believed poop could draw out toxins, and Egyptians saw it as a multi-use miracle paste. Apparently, no one stopped to consider the minor detail that feces is literally what the body throws away. But science, right? Coprophagic remedies came in several foul formats. In ancient Egypt, donkey dung was inserted vaginally to prevent pregnancy, effective mostly by making sex wildly undesirable. The Chinese made a delightful dish called yellow soup, fermented feces, and water, perfect for treating diarrhea by giving you more. Romans took things further, rubbing animal feces into wounds because infection was just a word they hadn't invented yet. Others mixed poop with herbs and swallowed as a pill. Whether it was smeared, chugged, or packed like a suppository, ancient healers were committed to making medicine taste like failure. Sure, a tiny fraction of the time it probably helped, thanks to accidental probiotics, but mostly, it just made things worse by exposing the patients to more disease, more ridicule, and probably the worst breath in human history. Modern science has politely taken this idea and reintroduced it as fecal transplant, delivered in sterile environments. So coprophagy in a way laid the groundwork for understanding the gut's role in health, and also for understanding why medical licensing eventually became a requirement. Alright, thanks for watching. See you later.